Texans players had some choice words for the referees after their 23-14 loss in the divisional round versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The refs were bad. Let's just say it. It was a poor officiated game. It looked like the Chiefs were getting all the calls, but DeMeco Ryans, Joe Mixon, Will Anderson, everybody was talking about how bad the refs were, and I was surprised. I think the NFL should do an investigation on just why were all the calls going the Chiefs' way. I made a game prediction yesterday, or game recap of what I thought originally, and I just have to touch on a couple things. And the players, let's just jump into it. DeMeco Ryans, first off, this is a quote from him. We knew going into the game everyone was going to be against us. When I say everyone, it's everybody. So he's obviously referring to the officials. And then you have Joe Mixon, another player, a very valuable player for the Texans. Everybody knows how it is playing up here. You can never leave it into the ref's hands. Huge. And then Will Anderson, we knew it was going to be us versus the refs going into this game. And you could just see the tension and everybody just kind of calling out the refs because it was kind of ridiculous, just the amount of calls that they were getting. This right here was kind of ridiculous. The slide, I talked about it in the last video, but the two players, Henry 202 and DeMeco Autry, I believe, unless it was Lorenzo Fatukasi, but there was two defensive linemen that were just going at each other and basically missed Mahomes. Here is the referee's thought, Clay Martin. This is what he saw. He said when he slides, he was considered a defenseless player. The honest is the defender. I had forcible contact to the hairline to the helmet. The hairline to the helmet. Let's go back to the picture. Not that. But, I mean, he's sliding late. Like, what do you want the team to do? So, I feel like the refs definitely screwed the Texans. It definitely is not the way you want it to go down. And when you have a whole game where you outplay the other team, the Texans' offense outplayed the Chiefs. I mean, they had more yards, more pass yards, more total yards, more rush yards. They just had a lot of self-inflicted wounds. It was bad because you couldn't capitalize on finishing drives. There were penalties that in opponent's territory that backed you up. The holding penalties didn't help. And your only touchdown of the game was Joe Mixon, and then Kaimi Fairbairn missed the extra points. So I really do think that the NFL has to just step in and maybe just change something, because we can't just have penalties ruin the game of football. When you have things that go like this, you cannot leave it into the officials' hands to make the decision of the game. There were so many times the Chiefs got bailed out on drives and they just got drives extended because of dumb flags. The Texans had 8 penalties for 84 yards in that game for flags, and I know flags are a part of the game, but there are some flags that should have been picked up. NFL rules analysts, they are literally saying this is not a penalty. It is not a penalty. So it's so controversial, but it's so tough at the same time. If you're a referee, you shouldn't have to call unless it's blatant and obvious. But if a quarterback is sliding late, you had Mahomes diving out of bounds on like right after this, 2 plays later, he flailed his arms out of bounds after he got pushed out of bounds. Oh my goodness. I can't deal with it. It's just ridiculous because it's been an ongoing trend with the Chiefs. There's been a lot of penalties, and to be fair, this is just a kind of wrap on the Texans season, right? It's been self-inflicted wounds all season. You shoot yourself in the foot, and that's just how it happened again. The missed field goals, the not executing on third and fourth down, 4th and short. You can't score touchdowns. So that's just the moral of the story is, although the NFL or the referees kind of screwed us, it does suck that you're able to lose that game, especially after outplaying the other team. Now, talking about self-inflicting wounds, it's just kind of crazy how the Texans messed this up. Late in the game, 4th and 10, there's 10 minutes left on the clock. You're down by 8. Why are you not punting? And another thing, the 3rd and 10 right before they went for it on 4th and 10, the punt that should have happened, the play before, there was a late push on C.J. Stroud. That was not called for roughing the passer either. So I'm actually confused as to what is a penalty. Because why did the Chiefs get the call, but the Texans don't? And I understand, the Mahomes played good enough to get the job done. You got to give him credit. But for the Texans, this is just a game that they were in and they should have won. And the score kind of says bigger than what the story actually was for this game. 23-14, and you miss a 55-yard field goal. You miss an extra point. You have a field goal that was blocked later in the game when you're trying to make a 9-point game, or an 11-point game, an 8-point game. So there was just a lot of problems. You should have not went for it on your own 40. There were so many things that you got to just clean up and bring it in the next year. The season's over, I understand it. Yes, the referees killed the Texans, and man, I just think it's funny that you have, not only does DeMeco Ryans talk about, not only does Will Anderson talk about, Joe Mixon, everyone was saying the refs were bad. But the thing I'll believe with the most is the fact that it's Joe Mixon. You can't leave it into the refs' hands, and I 100% agree. Joe Mixon played unbelievable. He had a great game. He had the only touchdown for the Texans. The bigger thing, he averaged almost 5 yards a carry. 18 carries, 88 yards. The Texans did so well. And to have a team like the Chiefs that just showed up when they had to and had the lucky penalties that just kept their drives going. Mahomes, 177 yards passing. Kelsey had 117. Now, to be fair, the defense did not play the greatest, okay? Kelsey was left wide open on a couple times. And as much as I'm blaming the referees here, I'm going to give some light on the fact that the Texans did kind of blow the game. Not only did they not score, they didn't cover Kelsey very well, although the flags doesn't help. And then you don't have the opening kick return and that goes all the way down to the 30-yard line, and then the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. That's another 3 points that should have been wiped off the board because the Chiefs went 3 and out, but because they were in field goal range. So there's just one thing after the next that why the Texans lost this game. Yes, the officials are into account as to why they lost, but it's also the missed field goals and the missed opportunities. They combine and they go together. So it's frustrating to deal with, but I mean that's kind of the storybook ending that the Texans were looking for. I mean, this is what they've done all season, and yes, again, officials hurt. But the biggest thing is you can't leave it up to them. You have to do what you can without the officiating. So looking to next year, there's a lot of things you can build on. And the one thing is the offensive line. When C.J. Stroud gets sacked 8 times, that doesn't help. On top of the missed field goals, on top of the missed opportunities, they're going for it on 4th and 10 with 10 minutes left in the game. I was so confused. Why are you going for it? And then you get back up to your own 8, and then you punt, and then they go down, and then they kick a field goal. It's just like there were so many things that went wrong, and it shouldn't have been this bad of a game. So you had the Chiefs on a long rest. You could have capitalized, but going into next season, the offensive line needs changing. I would love to have a secondary running back to complement Joe Mixon just for the future. I love Dameon Pierce, but getting a Cam Scatteraboo or maybe an R.J. Harvey or a Taj Brooks late in the draft, that's what's going to help this team as a running back pair. Obviously, running back is kind of our latest need. We'll get that in the later rounds of the draft. Maybe undrafted, but I'd like to see a running back on this team. Cornerback depth outside of Stingley and Kalen Bullock, and there's not much there. You got Kamari Lassiter, who was drafted, but I'd like to see another corner, maybe first round, another tackle, because it looks like Titus Howard's going to move inside, but there's just a lot of things to look forward to for the Texans. The future is bright for this team, and there's going to be so many updates that I'm going to have for you guys. Bobby Slowick's potentially going to be a head coach. We'll see if he comes back next year. But if the offensive line can figure it out, and this team can be a pass-first team with a good running back in Joe Mixon, with a complimentary guy, and a defense that can continue the top 10, all you got to do is bounce back. And then if you can figure out an offseason where you can get a wide receiver to pair with Nico Collins, with Stephon Diggs and John Mechie, who stepped up this year, this is still a Super Bowl contending team. And although they got beat by the Chiefs, it looks like they got beat bad by the score, 23-14. If they beat the Chiefs, I would have been very confident that they could have upset the Ravens or Bills. I know it sounds crazy, but just looking at this season, I would say you did well. Now, that season ends like you would have thought. The Texans beat themselves. What a shocker. But this is the opportunity to go trade for a wide receiver or go sign a guy like Devontae Adams or bring back Stephon Diggs. You need another guy to pair with Nico Collins. And you try to get Stephon Diggs, but it looks like the injury hurt. Tank Dell might be out for a whole season. So you got to kind of figure out the offense here. Do you move on from Dalton Schultz? Is Cade Stover the starting tight end? There are so many question marks left unsaid, and there is going to be so many rumors on this channel. So thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to have a lot of trade rumor videos. Texans are going to pursue a lot. The offseason started. We're just getting started. There's a lot of buzz going around. But the biggest thing is the fact that the refs kind of hurt us, and everyone's talking about how, oh, the refs this, refs that. At the end of the day, you have to capitalize on the things that you kind of beat yourselves on. So that's going to do it for the video today. Appreciate everyone hanging out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll catch you in the next video.